Oh, hello, great readers. I'm Belchan.
I'm Nimakong.
I'm Banchan.
In this class, I'll read to all of you a part of Great Expectations.
As.
Ah.
Great Expectations. Charles Dickens. Chapter 31. On our arrival in Denmark. Kitchen table. Holding a court. The whole of the Danish nobility were in attendance, consisting of a noble boy in the wash leather boots of a gigantic sister, late in life, silk legs, and presenting on the whole a feminine appearance. My gifted townsman stood gloomily apart, with folded arms, and I could have wished that his calls and forehead had been more probable. Several curious little circumstances transpired as the action proceeded. Cough at the time of his decease, but to have taken with him to the tomb, and to have brought it back. The royal phantom also carried a ghostly manuscript and its truncheon, to which it had the appearance of occasionally referring, and that too was suggestive of a stage of mortality. It was this. I can conceive. It took extremely ill. It was likewise to be noted of this majestic spirit, and walked an immense distance. It perceptibly came from a closely contiguous wall. This occasioned its stirrers to be received derisively. The Queen of Denmark, a very buxom lady, though no doubt historically brazen, was considered by the public to have too much brass about her. If she had a gorgeous to thatch, her waist being encircled by another, and each of her arms by another, Keats was inconsistent, presenting himself, as it were in one breath, as an able seaman, a strolling actor, a grave digger, a clergyman, and a person of the utmost importance at a court fencing match, on the authority of whose practised eye and nice discrimination the finest strokes were judged. This gradually led to a want of toleration for him, and even in his being detected in holy orders, and declining to perform the funeral service to the general indignation taking the form of gnats. Lastly, Ophelia was a prey to such slow musical madness that when, in course of time, she had taken off her white muslin scarf, folded it up, and buried it in the front row of the gallery, growled, "Now the baby's put to bed, let's our supper, Bishop." To say the least of it, was out of keeping. Upon my unfortunate townsman all these incidents accumulated with playful effect. Whenever that undecided prince had to ask a question or state a doubt, the public helped him out with it. As for example, on the question whether 'twas nobler in the mind to suffer, some roared yes, and some no. Society errs. When he asked what should such fellows as he do crawling between earth and heaven, he was encouraged with cries of ear. When he appeared with his stocking disordered, its disorder expressed, according to usage, by one very neat fold in the top, which I suppose to be always got up with a flat iron. A conversation took place in the gallery respecting the paleness of his leg, and whether it was occasioned by the turn the ghost had given him. Britannia. when he recommended the player not to smother thus. The sulky man said, "And don't you do it?" "Neda," greeted Mr. Wopsle on every one of these occasions. But his greatest trials were in the churchyard, which had the appearance of a primeval forest, with a kind of small ecclesiastical wash-house on one side, and a turnpike gate on the other. Mr. Wopsle in a comprehensive black cloak, being discreet entering at the turnpike, the gravedigger was admonished in a friendly way. "Look at! Here is the undertaker a-coming." None in a constitutional country that Mr. Wopsle could not possibly have returned to a skull, after moralising over it, without dusting his fingers on a white napkin taken from his breast. But even that innocent and indispensable action did not pass without the comment. Lid tumbling open was the signal for a general joy, which was much enhanced by the discovery, among the bearers, of an individual obnoxious to identification. The joy attended Mr. Wopsle through his struggle with Larts on the brink of the orchestra and the grave, and stuck him no more until he had tumbled the king off the kitchen table, and had died by inches from the ankles upward. We made some pale efforts in the beginning to uphold Mr. Wopsle, but they were too hopeless to be persisted in. Therefore we had sat, feeling keenly for him, but laughing, nevertheless, from ear to ear. I laughed in spite of myself all the time. The whole thing was so droll, and yet I had a latent impression that there was something decidedly funny amiss there. Wopsle's elocution enough for old association's sake, I am afraid, but because it was very slow, very dreary, very uphill and downhill, or Death ever expressed himself about anything. When the tragedy was over, and he had been called for and hooted, I said to Herbert, "Let us go at once." We made all haste we could downstairs, but we were not quick enough either. Standing at the door was the Dutchman with an unnatural heavy smear of eyebrow. He caught my eyes as we advanced, and said, when we came up with him, "Wistu, identity of Mr. Pip and friend confessed." "Wistu, Woldingover," said the man. "Woldingover," I repeated all and Herbert murmured in my ear. "Oh," said I. "This." A few steps. These. When we went aside alley, he turned and asked. I don't know what he had looked like, except a funeral. A blue ribbon. That had given him the appearance of being insured in some extraordinary fire office. But I said he had looked very nice. "When he come to the grave," said our conductor, "he showed his folk beautiful. But, judging from the wing, it looked to me that when he see the ghost in the Queen's apartment, I modestly assent, and we all fell through the little dirty swing door into a sort of hot packing case immediately behind it. Here Mr. Wopsle was divesting himself of his Danish garments, shoulders, by keeping the packing case door all wide open. "Gentlemen," said Mr. Wopsle, "I am proud to see you. I hoped, Mr. in You will excuse my sending round. I had the happiness to know you in former times, and the drama has ever had a claim which has ever been acknowledged. Meanwhile, Mr. Waldengover, in a frightful perspiration, was trying to get himself out of his princely sables. Skin the stockings off, Mr. Waldengover, said the owner of that property, or you'll bust him. Bust him. And you'll bust 35 shillings. Shakespeare never was complimented with a finer pair. Keep quiet in your chair now. With that, he went upon his knees and began to flay his victim. Who, on the first stocking coming off, would certainly have fallen over backward with his chair, but for there being no room to fall anyhow. I had been afraid until then to say a word about the play. But then, Mr. Waldengover looked up at us complacently and said, "Gentlemen, how did it seem to you?" "To go," Herbert said from behind, at the same time poking me. "How did you like my reading of the character?" "Gentlemen," said Mr. Waldengover, almost, if not quite, with patronage. Herbert said from behind, again poking me. Massive and concrete, so I said boldly, as if I had originated it, and must beg to insist upon it, "I am glad to have your approbation." "Gentlemen," said Mr. Waldengover, with an air of dignity, in spite of his being ground against the wall at the time, and holding by the seat of the chair. "But I'll tell you one thing, Mr. Waldengover," said the man who was on his knees, "in which you're out in your reading. Now mind, I don't care who's this contrary. I tell you so. You're out in a reading of Hamlet when you get your legs in profile. The last Hamlet as I dressed made the same mistakes in his reading at rehearsal, till I got him to put a large red wafer on each of his shins. And then at that rehearsal, which was the last, I went in front, fell to the back of the bit, and whenever his reading brought him into profile, Mr. Waldengover smiled at me, as much as to say a faithful dependent he overlook his folly, and then said aloud, "My view is a little classic and too full for them here, but they will improve." Herbert and I said together, "Well, no doubt they would improve. Did you observe?" "Gentlemen," said Mr. Waldengover, "service you mean?" We basically replied that we rather thought we had noticed such a man. I did. He was drunk. "Oh, do you know, sir," said Mr. Waldengover, "not drunk. His employer would see to that." "Sir, you know his employer," said I. Mr. Wops shut his eyes and opened them again, performing both ceremonies very slowly. "You must have observed, gentlemen," said he, an ignorant and a blatant thus, with a rasping throat and a countenance expressive of low malignity, "of Claudius, King of Denmark. That is his employer. Gentlemen, without distinction, knowing whether I should have been more sorry for Mr. Wopsliffy had been in despair. I was so sorry for him as it was. To supper? Hubert said he thought it would be kind to do so. Therefore I invited him, and he went to Bernard's with us. Wrapped up to the eyes, and we did our best for him. And he sat until 2 o'clock in the morning, reviewing his success and developing his plans. I forget in detail what they were, but I have a general recollection that he was to begin with reviving the drama, and to end with crushing it, inasmuch as his decease would leave it utterly bereft and without a chance or hope. Miserably I went to bed after all, and miserably thought of Estella, and miserably dreamed that my expectations were all cancelled, and that I had to give my hand in marriage to Herbert's Clara, or play Hamlet to Miss Evesham's ghost, before 20,000 people, without knowing 20 words of it. To be continued.